We are also following some developing news in Bloomfield this morning, where the district superintendent was unexpectedly canned.
Yeah, the call was made during a Board of Education meeting yesterday. Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Olivia Schuler explains why this really did come as a pretty big shock to a lot of people, right, Olivia?
Roger and Nicole, this came as a huge shock to a number of people. That's because Dr. James Thompson, he had plans to actually retire after this school year wrapped up. Now, he decided that he's going to fight back. He's going to start raising some questions after the board's decision. His lawyer advised him not to comment just yet, but the former Board of Ed chairman is speaking up about the decision made by the newly elected board. Board of Education Chairman Donald Harris says the decision to terminate Dr. Thompson's contract is, quote, disgraceful, classless, and reprehensible. In a statement, Harris said, quote, Dr. James Thompson Jr. has served this town with distinction for the last 12 years as superintendent of schools. He is, without question, one of the state's most respected school leaders. An interim superintendent was not named during Thursday's Board of Education meeting, as well as a permanent superintendent. That was not mentioned either. So we're going to have to wait and see how this all shakes out. Reporting live in Bloomfield, Olivia Schuler, Channel 3 Eyewitness News. All right.